I'm Nicole, standing in the mediation room, the air thick with tension. I stared at the faces of my family. They sat across the table, looking desperate and hopeful, but I saw through their act. The so-called apology, the soft words, all were a cover for their real intention, to get their hands on my money. It all started when I sold my startup for $15 million. I grew up in a small town called Greenfield. My parents, Richard and Linda, always had different expectations for me and my sister Lily. Lily, 2 years younger than me, was the delicate flower of the family. She was constantly in some sort of trouble, always getting into one mess after another. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, the one who learned to take care of myself from a young age. As a child, I was the one who did well in school, without much parental guidance. I filled out my own college applications and worked part-time jobs to save for my education. Lily, on the other hand, was allowed to be flighty. She would start various courses in college, but drop out due to the slightest inconvenience. My parents always made excuses for her, saying she was too creative for the normal educational path. When I was 17, I had saved up $3,000 by fixing people's computers in the neighborhood. I was planning to use that money to buy a used car for my college commute. But then Lily got into a car accident. Instead of scolding her, my parents asked me to give them my savings to help buy her a new one. They said it was a loan, but I knew it was just another way to support her. I gave in, and for the next few years, I took the bus while she drove around in a new car. After college, I landed a job at a mid-tier software company. But I saw a gap in the market for small and medium-sized businesses. I was determined to fill that gap, so I quit my job and started my own startup, Streamline Solutions. It was a logistics and AI firm that aimed to optimize supply chain operations for these businesses. The first few years were incredibly tough. There were countless sleepless nights, and I faced many setbacks. Once, a major client fired me due to a technical glitch. I was on the verge of bankruptcy, but I refused to give up. I met a mentor, Carol, at a networking event. She believed in my vision and gave me the financial boost I needed to keep going. As the company started to grow, I worked even harder. I missed family events, but my family didn't understand my sacrifices. Instead, they started to see me as a walking ATM. Every time Lily was in financial trouble, they would call me, asking me to bail her out. At first, I did it because I thought it was my responsibility as a sister. But as time went on, I started to push back. I wanted them to be accountable, but they just saw me as cold and calculating. Then one fateful Tuesday, I received an email from a large conglomerate. They wanted to acquire my company for $15 million. I was in shock. All those years of hard work had finally paid off. But instead of feeling pure joy, I felt a sense of dread. I knew my family would find out, and I was right. My mother called me late that night, her voice trembling. She said my father had a heart attack and that I needed to come home immediately. I dropped everything and flew back to Greenfield. When I entered my childhood home, instead of a sick father in the hospital bed, I found a table set up like a business meeting. There were binders, spreadsheets, and my family sitting around, looking like vultures waiting for their prey. They presented me with a family distribution plan, which proposed that I put 60% of my post-tax earnings into a trust they would control. They said it was for the family's well-being, but I knew it was just a scheme to get my money. I refused, of course. I offered them a counter-proposal to set up an education trust for Lily's kids, to pay for my father's medical expenses directly, and to invest in Lily's career development. But they saw it as an insult. They lashed out at me, calling me cold-hearted and saying that I was forgetting my roots. Lily accused me of not trusting her, and my parents said that I was destroying the family. But then I found out the truth. They were in deep financial trouble. Lily's husband, Tom, had a failed business, and they had a mountain of debt. They were on the verge of losing their house, and they needed my money to save themselves. I hired a wealth management advisor, Sandra, to investigate. She found out that Tom had taken a deposit for a construction project he never completed and was being sued for fraud. They had also used the non-refundable deposit for a franchise deal to pay off their old debts. They were in a desperate situation, and they were trying to use me to get out of it. I stood my ground in that mediation room. I showed them the family interaction protocol I had prepared. It clearly stated what I would support and the conditions for it. I wasn't going to be their cash cow anymore. They pleaded and cried, but I didn't waver. I knew that if I gave in, I would be enabling their irresponsible behavior. In the end, I walked out of that room. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My family sent me a barrage of angry messages and social media posts, trying to paint me as the bad guy. But I found solace in new relationships. I met Jake at a rock climbing gym. He didn't care about my money. He liked me for who I was. I also adopted a rescue dog, Max. They became my new family. 6 months later, I received a drawing from my niece. It was a simple picture of a school with a thank you note. It made me realize that even though I lost the family I once wanted, I was protecting the future of the next generation. And that, I believe, is a price worth paying.